Welcome to episodes 21 of the Raw Storyteller podcast. Letting go and learning lessons. And since I keep forgetting to do it, I'm going to start with maintenance. You can find me on SoundCloud, on Stitcher, on Patreon, and now also on YouTube. The links will be in the description. Hopefully, I haven't forgotten anything. So, letting go and learning lessons. When it comes to writing, I have an issue with abandoning stories. Now, a story I'm writing for the pleasure of it, the fun of it, trying stuff, that is not an issue. I have no problem dropping it because I'm doing that purely for myself. But as much as I say I write for me, the moment I publish something, I work. No, that's not the right term. In my head, it becomes a contract with the audience, and as such, I have to finish the contract. It can be as simple as finishing a series, or just finishing a story, depending where I am. Some places are a little easier to abandon because I don't, I they don't, they're not as serious for me as others. But when a place is serious, like publishing a book that somebody has to pay for, as badly as the series is doing, I have to finish it. I cannot simply abandon it in the middle of it. Um, and where this becomes, where this steps into learning lessons is that recently I started um, dabbling in um, in a new genre, lit RPG, which is also under the umbrella of game lit. Uh, as a whole, the concept is that the story has a gaming element, that be video or tabletop, that is integral to how the story work. So, as an example, writing a story about somebody playing on a console would not be lit RPG until that person gets pulled into the game. And then the story continues from that point forward, where the game elements are integral to how the world and the story work. There are various degrees, there are various um, subgenre within that. Um, a genre which I call hard lit RPG. I do not know if it's an official term, but for me, I call it like that, and it stems from hard sci-fi, hard military, where not only is the game element, the game system, um, integral to how the story develop, but it is clearly defined to the reader, where a careful reader can literally follow the story and pick apart the system and um, work out how the system functions. I had this idea. I love the idea, and I love that it's told in lit RPG, and I think that's the only place where this story can be told. And I build a system. Like, it's not perfect, it's got flaws, but I build it. I've got spreadsheet, I've got math, formulas and all that, and I jumped into it and I had fun. And I think about 12, 13 chapters in, I came to the realization that hard lit RPG at that level doesn't work for me. I love it. Like I would, I want to write it that way, but having to keep track of so much of that stuff interferes with the creativity aspect of the story where I keep having to pause, make notes. Okay, what level is he at? How many experience has he gained? If he's gone up a level in skills or overall level, I have to mark it in the story. And at one point, eventually I found myself like I'm stopping so much that I no longer knew where the story was going. And while I'm struggling with this story, another idea came, which is in Dungeon Core, which is another subcategory, and it can be done hard, like with numbers and everything, but I did not do it. I just wrote it. I put the element that needs to be in there. I added on, and like it is proper Dungeon Core, but no math, no hard um, RPG. You know, the reader will be able to work out how the world works, but not how the mechanics of it work, because they're none. Like I'm fudging it a lot. And comparing the two, like this one, which is called Bottom Rung, I realized that the flow was just going. Like I would just write. When I hit the RPG element, wrote it in, and continue the story. Like it flowed so easily. And this other one, this hard lit RPG, I kept having to stop because my creativity kept being interrupted. And I reached a point where I realized I cannot continue with this story. Now, in and of itself, that should not be a problem, but I started posting it on Royal Road. I'll put the link. Let me make a note. Um, I'll put the link in the description. And I have followers for that story, which means that they're never going to they're never going to see the end of this story. And for a good month, I told myself, okay, I am going to finish this arc, which is in theory maybe 2 chapters left to the arc, because I don't like abandoning something in the middle of a storyline. Like I want to give some measure of closure to the reader. I have not been able to write those 2 chapters. I at this point, it's no longer just a struggle; it's the outright anxiety of having to work on this story. That's ugh. So so you know, I 2 weeks ago, last week, I came to the realization. Well, I came to that realization a few weeks ago that this story was not going to continue. And last week, I decided I was going to not even try anymore. So I, now I've resolved myself. I've let go of that story. I do plan on telling it at some point. Um, I just have to rework how I'm going to do it. Um, because I know that there's some level of hardness that I need to keep. I just have to work out which one. So yeah, I mean, as you learn, as you write, we all learn lessons. And sometimes that lesson means that a story will not continue. And we need to be able to let go, to move on to something else. Now, this is a do as I say, not as I tell, because not as I do, because I am horrible at that. I have series that I'm still working on, even though I know they're never going to sell, or maybe I'll be lucky. So yeah. Um, as you learn, as you write, one, don't be afraid of learning lessons, and don't be afraid of taking those lessons to heart. And two, if part of those lessons mean letting go of a project, moving on to another one that will be more productive, more satisfying, because that's something we need to remember. A project has to be satisfying to yourself, because if you don't enjoy it, it's no longer it's work, and I refuse to turn writing into work. But yeah, so yeah, that was it for this episode, and so I'll see you on the next one.